But March the 8th will be out there. I wanted to bring this up because it was something interesting that happened this weekend, and just talking to some people. Obviously, the Super Bowl was in New Orleans. A lot of connections were made. Jaden Daniels was in town. Joe Burrow was in town. By the way, the NFL honors every year just continues to become an NFL LSU invitational. The NFL honors, for what it's worth, every time I look up, there's somebody from LSU there that's representing. Whether it be Joe in the comeback player of the year, I do think he was robbed for MVP. That's just me. Or be Jaden Daniels, the offensive rookie of the year. Or you have Jamar Chase that's there. You have Justin Jefferson, who I do think that was not fully not under the influence when he presented his award, or I think it might have been the Randy Moss thing. So I don't know if he presented an award, but the time that I'm talking about. But there's a room this weekend, and just some things that I had heard about going 30 days into this, that I think that the entire coaching staff, and not only the coaching staff, that the team is really intrigued by. We talked about defensively it being the outside backers with Pat Payton and Jack Pyburn, Jamari Butler, and what do you do ultimately? Do you move Perk to star or not? Does he rush the passer? How does that look in its entirety? Offensively, I think it's the receiver core. Now, we talked about this a lot in the position that I think that had the ultimate high floor, but the ultimate floor ceiling. We actually talked about that 2 weeks ago, and we talked about it a lot when Barry and Brown came here. I know LSU clipped the soundbite of us on their hype video, but receiver is very interesting. Brian Kelly was asked about Nick Anderson last week, and Brian Kelly did not mince words early. We knew he was hurt. We knew that he was rehabbing, and he had some ways to go here. But the upside is too big for a guy like that. It's basically what Brian Kelly said. Okay, sounds good. I think the potential that you have in that room is otherworldly in some regards here. You bring in Nick Anderson. We do not know what we don't know, and we probably won't find out a lot during spring because of the injury, what he can produce for you. But seemingly seeing how he comes back is something that you have to monitor. But even if he is and does come back remotely close, and I'm going to hope for the best here with that. I don't know if he will or won't. We'll see during spring if he gets out there, and we'll certainly see that during the fall. But one thing is for sure, 6'4", 220 pounds, that can really run, was really big in the red zone, a place that you massively struggled. A guy that can high point the football or run a quick slant and be physical enough, a guy that's got strong hands and can use his body to shield off defenders. It's what he did at Oklahoma, and it's how Oklahoma, quite frankly, at the end of the game, beat a playoff team in Texas 2 years ago. He was the reason at the end of the game on that fade route in the back of the end zone that had the strong hands. I look at him, and then I look at Barry and Brown. When I look at Barry and Brown, I see a guy that was not, in my humble opinion, I don't know if he was put in the right positions to be able to have the success that he could ultimately have at receiver. You're talking about a guy that has more impact from a touchdown perspective standpoint outside of the receiving game than you do him actually being and having opportunities to do it as a wide receiver. You could say he's been gimmicky. He's returned kicks. He's had some jet sweeps. But, man, I think that you look at a guy like that and say, now when you have a little bit more structure and a guy that, quite frankly, can throw you the football better than Brock Vandagriff, what do you become? The best year he had with Will Levis, and you can have your own opinions about Will Levis, is Garrett Nussmeier better than Will Levis? That is the question that you'll ultimately ask. And do you just have better offensive structure around it? I think that you do. And then you bring back two guys that did have some serious production last year. I say serious production, but good production for you. At the end of the season, Chris Hilton, while healthy and fully back, had 3 receiving touchdowns in the last 2 games. Put him in bubble wrap. It's like Nick Anderson. the high ceiling that you have, if healthy, is astronomical. And then you have Aaron Anderson, who I'm just going to call it the way that I see it, that I thought was your number one receiver a year ago. And he did not get the targets that he deserved. He did not get the production that he deserved. He didn't get the overall looks that he deserved. But Aaron Anderson definitely took a step forward as the first year as a starter. The former 5-star was really explosive in games like Florida and like Texas A&M, where he took the slant 70-plus to the house. I hear that the work that is going on in the receiving room at the current moment is what you would expect from a high competitive, high work ethic, and quite frankly, all guys that want to be number one but haven't technically on the paper proven that they're the number one. I see a team that has or a team at receiver that has had guys that have shown that they can have high production, but just does not and has not put it all together yet. We've seen massive leaps in year 2s and year 3s from guys at this position. Well, now you got a quadruple amount of them, all that have the potential to be NFL players. Some of them have the potential to be great. But what are their ceilings going to be here? Is the play calling going to be effective enough? Is the run game going to be effective enough to be able to open some things up for them? I do not know. The 7-on-7 work this year is more important than it's ever been. The stuff that you'll see in 7-on-7 and what you'll especially and more see in team periods during the spring has never been more elevated than it is this year. You're bringing so many unknowns outside of Aaron Anderson in here. So many unknowns. But, man, I got to tell you, I keep hearing Barry Brown's name a lot. I keep hearing Chris Hilton's name a lot. Got to stay healthy and got to have production receiver. Unknowns. But, man, if you're going to be a playoff team, that quadruple core has got to show out. That's not even mentioning what you're going to do at tight end. Man, if this thing comes together, offensively, if this thing comes together, the sky could be the limit. I don't know if you have the play calling. I think that you have so much potential. I could make the argument, and you know that I don't like being bullish about this kind of stuff now. I could make the argument right now that if you told me that LSU was a playoff team in 2025, then that means that at receiver, Nick Anderson started to hit. Barry Brown, Aaron Anderson took another step forward from the one that he made previously a year ago. Did Chris Hilton stay healthy? And when he was healthy and bombs over Baghdad started happening from Garrett Nussmeier, it was the last pair of games were the most comfortable that Garrett Nussmeier had been. Chris Hilton was in the game. When you were able to take the top off of defenses and you had the consistency, Chris wasn't jumping too soon or the ball was accurate. Special things happened. Now you have speed in Aaron Anderson and Barry Brown. What are you going to do? If these guys stay healthy, just even in the decoy point of it, man, you might have to go 2-man high. And you better pray to sweet baby Jesus. You've built a team that's got speed. I don't know if Jelani Watkins, as an example, comes back to football after what he's been doing in track. I do not know. What I do know is that's your 5th, 6th option now. Kyle Parker. But it's bombs over Baghdad that you're trying to hit here. I keep hearing a lot about that receiver room, the work ethic. I keep hearing about Nick Anderson and Barian Brown and Chris Hilton. Those are the three that I keep hearing the most about. Nick Anderson, Barian Brown, Chris Hilton.